Hello everybody, I think we're live on LinkedIn. It is Josh here, back for another episode of the Visto Show for September the 1st. How in the world are we already in September, folks? It doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, it's September the 1st, 2023. How are you? How's your day going? How's your week been? Are you excited for the Labor Day long weekend? I know I am. Vivian says hey in the chat. Matthew Sherman says hey in the chat. Please feel free to drop a hello in the chat. Let me know. Can you see me okay? Can you hear me okay? How's your day going? Where are you tuning in from? All that fun stuff. Looks like we got a few people hanging out for what should be here's what's going to be interesting about the Visto show this week. It's going to be fewer topics, but the topics are going to be much more heated. Right? What do I mean by that? Well, if you look on this side of the screen, you'll see we have some heavy-hitting topics to discuss. Number one, we're going to talk about express entry. Why was there no draw this week? I have some inklings as to why. The cap on international students that's driving everybody up in arms. Is it even going to happen? Is it even worth paying attention to? I don't know, but I'm going to talk about it, share my opinions, and hopefully get some of yours as well. We're going to talk about new LMIA automation that Visto has come out with. I'm going to show you some screenshots, some cool functionality, and it's going to be pretty cool looking. And then, of course, Q&A. If you guys have any questions, thoughts, comments, feelings, interests, feel free to throw them in the chat. The only thing that I really don't touch on for the Visto show is we don't give immigration advice, right? For general immigration advice, send me a message, send me an email after the fact. I'll introduce you to somebody who can help. This is more news, updates, thoughts, opinions, debates, all that kind of stuff. Let me take a quick peek at the chat, as I like to do throughout the show. Gabriel says, hi Josh, good afternoon. Gabriel, thanks for tuning in. Good afternoon to you as well. Yes, we can hear you properly. Awesome. Any plans for the long weekend? Oh, Mr. Sherman, I got some plans. Before I get into the business, I'm going to tell you what I have planned for my long weekend. All right? My plan for this long weekend is to relax and to do a 3-day fast. I don't know if any of you are into or interested in fasting or how dieting affects health. I try to do a 2 to 3 day fast 1 to 2 times a year. I think it's good for your health. I'm not going to get into the details why, because I'm not a medical doctor here. But this weekend I have planned a 3-day long fast. No food, just coffee and water. No sugar, no calories. Wish me luck. Anyways, those are my plans for the weekend. Gabriel says, yes, we can hear you properly. Amir says, hi, Josh. Hey, Amir, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully your week is going well. Vivian says, from Ghana, week has been stressful, but weekend is here, so yay. Vivian, thanks for tuning in all the way from Ghana. Glad to hear you made it through the week. Hopefully you get some time to relax. Doug says hello. Gabriel's tuning in from the Dominican Republic. I think I knew that, Gabriel, because you've been tuning in for quite some time now. Appreciate the support. Fakir says, hello, sir. I hope everything is good. How to immigrate to Canada from Afghanistan. I wish to help me, sir. Fakir, again, we're not going to get into general immigration advice, but feel free to reach out after the show and we can jump into that. Yes, it works wonders, says Amir. Okay, we got at least one thumbs up. That's good to hear. All right, let's start jumping in. I'm going to jump into the topics for today. As always, if you have thoughts on the topics I'm covering, thoughts, questions, opinions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. I like to bring them up, make this a two-sided conversation. So, the first topic, as most of you know, when we have express entry draws, they tend to happen every 2 weeks, right? Let me share my screen here. When we have draws in express entry, they typically happen every 2 weeks, right? We had one on the 15th. We had 2 of them on the 2nd and the 3rd and the 1st, actually 3 of them. We had 2 in July, right? Basically, you get like 2 waves depending on the length of the month, right? So what this tells us is that this week we were supposed to have an express entry draw. But alas, let me refresh my page. We have had Visto shows where an express entry draw happened live on air. But alas, we have no express entry draw since August 15th, right? Now, I dug around, went into the news, looked around, browsed Reddit, and the best thing that I could find, which makes sense here, is that express entry is actually nearing its cap for the year, right? So what do I mean by this? Well, every year, the government sets an immigration levels plan, right? Where they say, okay, hey, for the next 3 years, our target is this many people for these types of applications, right? And you can see they actually do a pretty good job here of breaking it down by category, right? So we can see here, we have economic immigration. Express entry is this category here, right? Considered federal high skilled, right? If you click on this, number 1, it says it includes FSW, FST, and CEC, right? AKA express entry, right? And we can see here, if we go further along, that the target for 2023 is 82,880 people. The lower range is about 67,000. The upper range is about 88,000, right? Now, what do we do next, or what did I do next? I went and I did the math, and I calculated from all these draws so far in 2023, which you can see here, how many have we invited so far? The total comes to 77,748, right? Now let's combine that with the target. Where'd it go? So here's the target, right? 82,000. Here's where we're at. So if we can do this minus this, that means that there's roughly about 5,000 more slots for express entry, right? The other thing we know is that express entry draws, they typically do them in waves of like 3,000 to 4,000 a pop, right? So if the average draw is about 3,000 to 4,000 people per 2 weeks, that means we only have like 1 to 2 draws left, right? Now the quick caveat I want to say here is, I think what they mean with these numbers is approvals, right? 82,880 approvals. And what I've calculated in terms of the number of invitations is they've done 77,700 invitations, right? That doesn't mean that all of these are going to be approved, right? So what do I mean by this? Let's say 10% of applications get rejected, right? I'm going to assume a low rejection rate for express entry, because once you gather enough points and you're eligible and stuff like that, it's like, I would assume it's a pretty high approval rate. But let's say 10% get rejected, right? So we'll do the 77,000 times 0.9. That's still roughly 70,000 people, roughly, right? This is rough. This is just an estimate I'm making. But let's just call it 70,000 out of 82,000, right? So if we only have room for another 12,000, and let's assume that roughly 10% get rejected, we can do that times like 1.1-ish. That means we only have roughly 13,000 invitations left to go, right? Which again is really only if we say the average draw size is roughly about 4,000, that's 3.3 draws, even though we have 4 months left in the year, right? So I'm throwing a whole bunch of wacky numbers at you guys. Hopefully this makes a little bit of sense. But like, this is the target, right? This 82,000. Oh crap, you can't see my screen. It's in the bottom left. Hold on, let me move my camera out of the way here. Sorry, I'm an idiot. How do I zoom this in bigger? Here we go. Let's zoom it in so you can see the numbers a little bit better here, right? Gabriel says, is there a cap for work permits and LMIAs? I don't know, Gabriel, there's no hard cap, but you can see on this link here, I'll post a link in the chat. I don't know if this is this only looks like it's for permanent residents, right? So you can see economic, family. It doesn't mention work permits, right? This all looks like refugee and PR for right now. Earl says, would be interesting to take this math back to last year as a comparison, i.e. how many were targets, how many were invited. That's a great point, Earl. I don't have the mental capacity to do that live on stream right now. I don't have the 2022 numbers in front of me, but maybe that's something I'll whip up for a future LinkedIn post, because it's a good, it's a great kind of question. But basically what I'm trying to summarize here is this 82,000 roughly is their target. We've already got 77,700 people invited, right? Not approved, invited. So if this target number is approvals, then by my math, we only have like 3 to 4 more draws left, assuming they invite about 4,000 people per draw. So this could be an explanation of why we didn't get an express entry draw this week. The numbers are a little bit concerning, right? Because there's a lot of people still very hopeful to come through express entry. In fact, if we want to know specifically how many people are in the pool, we can see that. I'm just going to refresh the page. We have about, where was it? 211,000 people in the express entry pool right now, right? And apparently we only have room for another 12 to 13,000 this year, right? By my rough estimations, right? So anyways, things to keep in mind, right? Because you need to be realistic, right? If you're sitting in the express entry pool right now and you don't fit under any of these, you don't fit under any of the industry-specific draws, right? French, STEM, healthcare, trucking, and you don't have a score above like a 480 or 490, if you're not in one of those industries, I think that there's a very low chance you get an invitation through express entry this year. So again, just things to keep in mind. Paul says, got in at the last draw August 15th. Thank you, Josh, from your detailed analysis. I ought to make sure I get my application in ASAP if they only have about 30. Yeah. So, Paul, number one, congrats. That's awesome to hear. I think you'll be okay if you got the invitation, right? Because like I said, I think this 82,000 number is the number that they want to approve. I think. I could be wrong. I don't know if they make it clear. Detail aims to welcome... So, like, I don't know. It doesn't say, right? It just says target. It doesn't say anything about includes, blah, 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 includes. Like, I don't know if it says anything about these are the approvals that we want or just number of applicants. But what I would say, Paul, is as long as you get it in within the 60 or whatever 90 days that they give you, I think you'll be fine. Congrats. And, hopefully it goes well. So that's what I wanted to discuss with regarding express entry before we move on to the next topic. That's probably one of, if not the main reason why they didn't do a draw this year, right? How is it going to affect draws for the next or the last 4 months of the year? I don't know. Expect them to shrink and I guess be not as often. I don't know if they're going to try and just do a couple more big draws in the next month or two and then shut it off. I don't know if they're going to try and spread it out. I mean, the other thing that could happen too is they could stretch towards the high range, right? So you can see they have a low range and a high range, right? Low range 67,000. We're obviously going to cross that. We already kind of have. High range 88,000. So maybe they just keep pumping out invites. I think it'll be interesting whether they do that or not, because as I'm about to talk about in the next point, there's a lot of discussion around population right now, right? Do we need to be going over targets right now, considering cost of living, housing issues, stuff like that? I don't know, right? So anyways, that's my thinking. Let me know if you have any thoughts, comments, questions in the comments here on LinkedIn. If you're watching a recording of this after the fact on YouTube, hello. And I do record these actually live every 2 weeks on LinkedIn. So if you like this on YouTube, but you want to watch live, be able to comment, ask me questions, make sure to click the link down below in the description. Make sure to follow me on LinkedIn. And I always post the day before or the day of when I go live. The other thing you guys should all do is make sure that you're signed up for the Visto email list. I will put a link to that in the comments right now, because every morning before I go live, I send out an email with a reminder and a link to the LinkedIn Live. So anyways, I'll stop beating that dead horse. Let's move on to the next topic. The next topic being the cap on international students, right? Now, we've seen a lot of chatter about this lately. I'm very curious to hear a lot of your opinions on what you think, right? We've seen a lot of news headlines. We've seen a lot of chatter. We've seen a lot of opinions. We've seen a lot of clickbaity videos and stuff like that. I posted last week about it, and I'll just quickly share my screen here, talking about the cap on international students coming to Canada, right? In case you didn't read the whole post, I'll link to it in the description as well. But I'm going to summarize it for you here. And again, interested to hear what folks think about this. But what I had to say about it, which garnered some pretty good attention, right? We got 19 comments, 50 plus likes, about 5,000 impressions, which for me I think is a lot, is I don't know. I think it's being overhyped for right now, right? For a few reasons. Number one is, I believe the words Minister Fraser said were, one of the options that we ought to consider is putting a cap on international students, right? The problem is the news take that one sentence and they run with it to the hills, screaming it, and it becomes a fact, right? So the one thing I want to say here, firstly, is just remember, there's no official plan to do this yet, right? Could they put a cap on international students in the future? Sure, absolutely they could. But from right now, it seems like they're just talking about that it could be one option to consider, right? So first and foremost, don't freak out too much. We're still early on. I think we would hear a little bit more about it before anything came official. Second of all, as I said in the post, I always follow the key rule of FTM, right? Follow the money, because that's generally what spins the world around, right? And so what do I mean by this? The international student industry in Canada right now makes so many people and so many businesses and organizations so much money that sadly, I would be surprised if they put a cap on that engine, right? So what do I mean by that? Who makes money off of international students, right? If we slow this down and take a step back. Okay, most students, not the majority, but probably close to the majority, come from India. So let's just use this as an example, right? You're a 19, 21-year-old student in India, you want to come to Canada. Who's going to make a bunch of money off you? Number one, probably the agent that you're working with abroad, right? Who's typically unregulated, making all their money off of commission, right? So you have all these international study abroad agents or ghost consultants, right? Whatever you want to call them. The regulated professionals make some money, right? I know not a ton of immigration lawyers do a lot of study permit work because most students just go with the free study abroad agent. But you have some immigration lawyers, some immigration consultants that make some money off of prepping study permits or study permit reapplications or study permit JRs. You have obviously the schools, right? The schools make a ton of money in terms of tuition off international students, right? It's something crazy like $15,000 to $25,000 a year, right, in tuition. You have the government, right? When 500,000 students apply for their study permit, let's think about how much that is in fees, right? Just government filing fees. I'm sharing my screen here with a calculator, right? So let's say last year we had about 550,000 students approved, right? This does not include rejections, and this does not include family members. The study permit application fee is $150, right? Let's do some quick math here. That's $82.5 million in government filing fees, right? I almost want to do that a second time just to be safe. 550,000 students times 150 Canadian dollars is $82.5 million just in the $150 initial filing fee, right? This doesn't account for all of the students that got rejected. This doesn't account for all the students that got rejected and then had to apply again. This doesn't account for any family members they may have included in their application, right? If they're including spouse, common law partner, etc., etc. So there's a lot of money at stake for a lot of people, right? Who else? The airlines, the big banks who get all their new customers, you know, all the a lot of employers in Canada do need international students, mostly for, you know, low-paying, low-skilled jobs. The ones that do it legally, of course. So anyways, what I'm trying to highlight here is there's certainly a lot of money at stake, right? If the government were to start limiting this number of students. Now, is it the right decision to make or not? I don't know. I personally think that these numbers are getting out of hand, personally, for two reasons. Number one, the whole program is almost a bit of a sham at this point. You have people using fraudulent mark sheets, fraudulent language exams, just going to whatever program will let them in because their agent says that it's the best way to do it because their agent makes, their best interest is getting their commission, right? And then we're funneling students into programs that might not necessarily lead them to success when they graduate. And by lead them to success, I mean to be able to actually land a job, settle, and get permanent residence in Canada, right? So that's big problem number one. And problem number two is housing, right? Like, given the current housing situation in Canada, housing, healthcare, stuff like that, do we want to keep that in mind in terms of the number of newcomers entering the country every year, right? So these are things to keep in mind, in my opinion. The way I kind of ended this rant on LinkedIn was I think we have to redesign the study permit program from the ground up. I think that the requirements aren't good. They should be updated, right? Why are we evaluating based on ties to your home country if we have PGWP and PR? Why are we allowing unregulated agents to submit applications to IRCC without a student ever looking at any of the documents? Why aren't the schools held accountable whatsoever for the types of programs they're creating, the admission processes, the fact that they're, some of them have basically been built to manufacture PGWPs, right? They throw up a little office, they teach the courses online, and they're basically printing money, right? Because they can charge international tuition. Why aren't we aligning the types of programs that students are being accepted for with the labor shortages in Canada so that all these international students that we're bringing in are actually helping solve the labor shortage for the country, which is a benefit to Canada, and number two, actually getting them employed after, because a lot of them struggle really hard to land skilled jobs, right? So why don't we better align eligible programs with job potential when they graduate, right? So what I say here is instead of putting a cap in place, which will no doubt just cause people to find other ways to game the system, why not improve the system or the program so the best applicants can still use it and we set them up for real success in Canada? So I actually think there's big potential here to rejig the program a little bit, make the actual application process a little bit better, hold the schools more accountable, hold this, the ghost consultants to some semblance of accountability, or maybe block them out. I don't know. That's maybe a whole other discussion. But there's a lot of room for improvement that I think could go a long way. Earl says, here is why we cannot continue to dump international students in Canada, especially edu-immigrant clients, in brackets, community college students in particular. Year one, the volume of new international students coming with PR intentions is 330,000. So about 60% of the international students. Actually, it is much higher. Residential from last year, NA, but in there's already a residual pool built up. Successful PGWP to PR transitions is 60K. I'm just going to quickly post these numbers. I'm going to copy paste these numbers, Earl, onto my screen so people can kind of read along with us. Here, let me just post here and see what happens. Okay, that kind of worked. So you can see here, in year one, we have about 330,000 coming with PR intentions. Successful PGWP to PR transitions is only 60K. High end, traditionally even lower. That seems like a really low number to me. Year two, volume of new international students is, again, let's call it 330,000, even though this is probably rising. Residual from last year. So this means the students from last year that didn't get permanent residence, 270K. So now you have a total pool that want to get PR is at about 600K. Successful PGWP to PR transitions, 60K. So basically what part of what this is underlying, I mean this is underlying a lot. But you can see here that year over year, we're bringing increasing numbers of international students, but a very small number of them are actually graduating, getting PGWP, and then getting permanent residence, right? Which makes it even harder in future years, because now the express entry pool gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? We just saw that the express entry pool is over 200,000 people right now, right? And we just also saw that the express entry quota for the year was 82,000, right? So there's a huge mismatch in that regard. So again, I mean, you guys should definitely follow Earl. He posts some really good information and data. But you can see here that with so few international students actually successfully making the leap to PR, not only does that kind of suck to begin with, but then every year thereafter, the pool of all these international students and graduates continues to just get larger, and it then makes it harder for everybody to get PR because only such a small number of them are actually getting PR, right? So it's very sad to see. This is part of why I think we need change, right? Because this system is just going to blow up, right? What's going to happen if we continue down this path is a few more years go by and nobody's going to want to come study in Canada because nobody's going to be able to find a pathway to PR. So what's the point for a lot of students, right? Some students, they just want to come, they want to get a master's, they want to do whatever, and then they want to go back home, and that's totally fine. But a good chunk of students want to come to Canada to study, graduate, land a job, settle down, start a career, become a permanent resident, maybe start a family or grow their family. And it's increasingly becoming harder to do that in Canada, which is very sad to see. But if we could redesign and realign the program, I actually think there's the potential to salvage this. But that's a big if, because I don't know if all these different parties that are making way too much money the way things are going right now are going to do anything in time. Anyways, Vivian says that makes absolute sense. That answers the problem extensively without sacrificing the gains. Agreed, Vivian. Thank you for chiming in. The question always then becomes, are the right people going to make the right decisions in time? I don't know. Only time will tell there. Earl linked to a Google document with some data. Let's see what this looks like. I'm just pulling it up on my screen. I'll share my screen again. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Canada admissions of permanent residents with prior post-grad employment work permit holder status. So, wow. So we can see here, in 2021, 88,000 people went from PGWP to permanent resident, right? Now, why is that concerning? Because every year we're bringing in like 550,000 of them, right? But every year, oh my God, and look at how small the numbers were in prior years too. It'll be interesting to see, okay, here, this is for part of 2022. So if we extrapolate that out, that's probably in the same range of like 70 to 80K, right? So if we think about this as a funnel, we have at the top every year 500,000+ international students coming in, and then obviously not all of them graduate every year. Some of them drop out, some of them don't graduate, some of them don't get PGWP, blah blah blah. But at the bottom of the funnel, only 80-ish thousand of them are getting PR per year, right? So that's a little bit concerning, right? When you have 550,000 coming in through the top of the funnel and then only 80,000 roughly, right? We can't equate this 1-to-1, but even roughly speaking, even if it was like 1-to-2, right? That's still like less than 20-30% of international students getting PR every year, which is pretty concerning. So the 88K was a TR to PR debacle. Okay, that explains it. So the number will probably be lower. I guess that's why you used the 60K number, Earl. So that makes sense. Okay, crazy. Let's see what happens. I think there's a lot of improvements that need to be made. Will they make them? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Last two quick topics I wanted to talk about. First of all, new LMIA automation. So for those of you who don't know, Visto, the Visto show, Visto.ai is an immigration tech platform. We help immigration consultants and lawyers run better practices, right? So we help immigration professionals work with their clients, prep and file visas much faster using automation, AI, all that kind of fun stuff. We recently just launched our newest feature, which is LMIA automation, right? So we've added in a new feature where now you can manage all your corporate clients and their LMIAs in one place. So I'll just spend 2-3 minutes just showing you kind of how it looks. You can invite corporate clients, you can gather all their basic information, get their staff loaded up onto Visto. You can gather some supporting documents that you might need from them. You and the company can then start uploading or managing different employees that you might want to sponsor through LMIAs. You can upload and start managing the different roles that you'll be applying for, right? Create a role once, use it for multiple LMIA applications down the road in the future to save you a bunch of time. You can then create and manage your LMIA applications, right, in Visto, right? So you can create new LMIA applications with your client. You can gather all the information that you might need from the client right within Visto, right? We have a progress tracker so you and the client can be updated along the way. Gather a whole bunch of different documents, all the information that you need, all the different documents that you need. And we also just built in this custom cover letter generator, right? So when you are ready to submit your LMIA application, you can click 2 buttons and we auto generate a custom cover letter, right? Pulling in the type of application, the company you're working for, the knock code, the supporting documents, all that kind of stuff, which you can obviously edit at the end as well. I think that's most of what I wanted to show you guys. Oh, we make it easy to then apply on the LMIA portal, right? They've moved all this stuff online. So once you've gathered all the documents, all the information in Visto, you have everything from your client ready to go. We have a 1-pager that kind of summarizes everything that you need in order. You can open up the LMIA portal on one tab or on one screen, and you can go question by question and just click copy, paste into the portal. All the data here in one place, making it easy to compare, contrast, copy, paste over, and submit that LMIA application as quickly as possible. So if you're an immigration lawyer, immigration consultant working at an immigration law firm, and this is interesting, or you think it might be a little bit faster than the way you're doing it right now, let me know. Send me a message or check out the website at visto.ai, and you can learn more, or you can send me a message and we can take the conversation forward from there. That's it for me today. Those are the big topics that I wanted to cover. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll wait a quick minute or two as well to see if there's any other questions, comments in the chat for all the folks that did tune in live. I really appreciate it. I'm going to give it about 1 or 2 minutes, see if we get any questions come in. In the meantime, make sure once again that you're signed up to the Visto email list. Every 2 weeks, I send a quick email with updates, news, a reminder to tune in for the Visto show because I go live every 2 weeks. I'll put the link to that in the description below or in the comments, depending on where you're watching this. And if that's it, then I want to say a quick thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Any likes, thumbs up, support, subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. All that stuff really helps. If you have a long weekend coming up, hope you enjoy that long weekend as well. Anthony says, any way to check if the LMI is legit? In what perspective, Anthony? Do you mean like an employee, and you're wondering if the company or the person that's trying to kind of sell you the job is faking an LMIA or not? Because that's an interesting question and problem that I've seen pop up a little bit. Vivian says, I got a call, so I lost a bit about the LMIA bit. I will send you a message on LinkedIn. Thank you. Yeah, no problem, Vivian. You can also watch a recording, right? So if you're in the middle of this on LinkedIn, the recording will go live as well on LinkedIn, so you can click into whatever piece that you might have missed. And or I'll be posting this on our YouTube channel as well. I will actually link to that in LinkedIn as well. So you have a link to the Visto channel. And that way, if you subscribe to us on YouTube, you can watch these videos whenever you want. And I also post a bunch of shorts, right? Just little videos, my thoughts on updates and news and stuff like that. I'm pretty active posting YouTube shorts there as well. Anthony says yes. That's a good question, Anthony. I think I don't know if you can just do it automatically online. You might have to contact ESDC, right? Because LMIAs are processed by the ESDC. For example, an employee gets an LMIA job offer from an employer. Well, number one, Anthony, I would definitely ask to see a copy of the LMIA approval, right? In fact, they have to provide a copy of the LMIA approval in order for you to apply for a work permit, right? So number one, ask for a copy of the LMIA approval, if that's what they're saying, right? If they already have one approved, right? It depends, I guess, on which step you're at, right? If the client says that they have, or if the employer says that they have an LMIA approved, then say, okay, great, can I please see a copy of the LMIA approval? Now, you're still probably going to want to triple check because there's plenty of people that have faked many of these documents, right? Fraudulent LMIAs, fraudulent this, fraudulent offer letters, all that kind of stuff. If you have, I don't know if there's a system where you can like check the validity of an LMIA just by like using the LMIA number or something. I'm not sure. If anybody knows and can let me know in the comments, please let me know. One option might be to just call ESDC, right? So it's not Immigration Canada that processes LMIAs. It's Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC. You might be able to call their helpline, or just Google ESDC contact information, give them a call and ask them if the LMIA is legit, right? And or if the company's legit. You want to be very careful. The other tip that I give is never accept a job offer from a company that's trying to charge you money, right? Because number one, it's illegal, and number two, it's probably a clear sign that they're trying to scam you, right? Which is if they charge you money for an LMIA-backed job offer, because that's technically against the law, right? So if somebody tries to charge you money for an LMIA or for an LMIA-backed employment agreement or job offer, run the other way. That would be my advice. If they don't charge you money but they claim to have an LMIA approved, ask for a copy of it. And then if you're iffy on whether it's legit or not, I would call ESDC and ask them to try and confirm. Subhagya says, I have a question related to the LMIA, but the question might not be relevant for this forum, so I'll reach out directly. Sounds good. Subhagya, thanks for tuning in, folks. I'm going to call it a day there. As I said, if you came in late, you want to watch it again or watch a different segment, the whole video recording will stay live on LinkedIn. I will also post it to the Visto YouTube channel, so make sure to subscribe over there, and you'll catch everything in the future. Very curious to pursue a career as an RCIC, just out of curiosity, wanted to learn a little on this. I don't think ESDC confirms it. I'm not sure, Anthony. But there's got to be some way to confirm it for the employee side, right? So I don't know. I might look into that. That's an interesting question. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for the question, Anthony. Appreciate it. To everybody else, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. Have a good long weekend if you have a long weekend coming up. And I will see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.